أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا يبلغ مدحته القائلون ولا يوصي نعمه العادون ولا يودي حقه المجتهدون الذي لا يدركه بهد الهمم ولا يناله غوص الفتن الذي ليس لصفته حد محدود ولا نعت موجود ولا وقت محدود ولا أجل ممدود فترى الخلائق بقدرته ونشر الرياح برحمته ووتد بالسخر ميدان عرض ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وحبيبنا وحبيب رب العالمين أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعن على أعدائهم أجمعين من أول يوم ظلمهم إلى قيام يوم الدين أما بعد فقال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المبين وقوله الحق بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فهل عسيتم إن توليتم أن تفسدوا في الأرض وتقطعوا أرحامكم أولئك الذين لعنهم الله فأصمهم وأعمى أبصارهم صدق الله العلي العظيم. Dear brothers and sisters, before we get started, please, I request you all to recite a Surah Fatiha for the person who made all of this possible in this month of Ramadan, who's constantly taking care of all the videography, all of the putting everything online. Please recite a Surah Fatiha for the marhumin of Brother Yasir Abbas, especially, and for all of the people that help at the center. That usually, if it was in the month of Ramadan, that would make the nights of Amir al-Mu'minin Shahadat. They would decorate the masjid, recite a Surah Fatiha for all those people, the people that would help on the day of Eid. Please keep all of them in mind and recite a Surah Fatiha for all of them, especially for Brother Yasir Abbas al-Marhumin. Please recite a Surah Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Bismillah. Bismillah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we all know, Islam is not just a religion, but it's a whole way of life. It teaches us how to sit, how to stand, how to eat, how to drink. It teaches us how to live our whole life. Just as it has a personal aspect to it, it also has a social aspect to it. If it teaches us how to make ourselves better, it also teaches us how to make society better. But to make society a better place, you first have to make yourself a better person. Society, as we know, consists of individuals, but these individuals are influenced by the people that are around them. Any society, if you want to make a society better, you are a part of that society that you live in. Before you make the society better, what should you do? You should make yourself better. Once or if every person starts thinking like this, that you know what, to make the society better, first I should make myself better. If each person starts making themselves better, then little by little the society itself will get better. A major influence on this individual is the family. We have already focused on how to make yourself better, or some things that you can do to make yourself better. So tonight I want to focus on family and how important family relations are. Islam has placed tremendous emphasis on the establishment, on the maintenance and protection of family ties and family kinship. Various Quranic verses and hadiths of the Holy Prophet and the Masumeen, they instruct Muslims to be kind, merciful, and affectionate and caring towards parents and relatives. Although The other religions such as Christianity and Judaism advocate the maintenance of family relations. Islam, it takes it to a higher degree. Inshallah, by the end of the lecture, we'll see what I mean by this. In Islam, a Muslim is commanded to be kind to family members and not cut off any ties, even if their relatives are non-Muslims. Even if a person's relatives are non-Muslim, Islam says that you have to maintain your family ties. Today, here living in the West, there's so many Westerners that become Muslim. And there's some Westerners that say that after you can look online, they say that after they became Muslim, their family, they completely excommunicated them. They wouldn't talk to them. They just completely cut off ties with them. Islam says, look, even if your family is non-Muslim, it tells you shouldn't be the one to cut off ties with them because they're non-Muslim. Because they're not Muslim, you shouldn't say, you know what, you're non-Muslim, I can't be with you anymore. No, that's not what Islam teaches. That's not what Islam says. And those aren't the principles or the moral principles of Islam. For Silatul Rahim and Qatal Rahim, Islam does not distinguish between a Muslim and a Kafir, or a Muslim and a non-Muslim, or between a pious person or a sinful person. The only time that it becomes necessary on a person to cut family ties with a relative is only and only if that relative harbors hate towards Islam and shows that. Meaning they show that hate towards Islam and constantly do things to degrade Islam, to bring Islam down, or they're constantly at war with Islam and Muslims. This is the only time where Islam says you cut off those ties, and you cut off those ties until when? Forever? No. If they decide, you know what, if they decide that no, Islam isn't a bad religion, there's no reason for us to be at war with Islam. If your family comes to this conclusion, then no, Islam says that when they've decided that no, there's nothing wrong with Islam, then you rekindle those relations that you had. But a companion of Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, he says to the Imam, he says, Mullah, my relatives, they're not of the same religion as I am. Mullah, they don't practice the same way I do. Do they have any rights on me? Imam, he looks at him and he says, yes, they do. Their rights do not become invalid because they're non-Muslims. The rights of your relatives, they don't become invalid because they're non-Muslims. But if the relatives are Muslim, their rights become twice as much. One, due to them being relatives, and two, for them being Muslims. So regardless of whether your relatives are Muslim or non-Muslim, they have rights over you, and you have rights on them. And when we read the Quran, we see that family is a recurring theme in the Quran itself. It talks about the Quran, you read the Quran, it talks about Prophet Adam alayhi salam and his family. It talks about Prophet Nuh alayhi salam and his family. It talks about Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and his family. It talks about Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam and his family. It talks about the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his family, and so on, other prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a whole chapter number 3 of the Quran entitled what? Al Imran, the family of Imran. So Quran, there's a theme within the Quran about family, and due to this importance, Islam has accorded to maintaining family ties. The reward and benefits of doing so are great within Islam. Similarly, neglecting and severing family ties can have disastrous consequences on a person's life. So therefore it becomes imperative that every Muslim is thoroughly educated regarding this important obligation set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a man, he came and he approached the Holy Prophet and he asked him, Ya Rasulullah, what is the worst deed in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is the worst deed? And the Prophet, he replied, shirk. Shirk is the worst deed. To attribute partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The man, he continues and he asks, after this, which is the worst? And the Prophet, he replies, severing relations with family. severing family ties, severing family relations. Severing relations with family is so terrible that Imam Muhammad Baqir, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, he states that there are 3 sins whose punishment must be borne in this world. Imam al-Islam, he says that, look, there are 3 sins that you will be punished for in this world. You won't be punished in the afterlife. No, there are 3 sins that you will bear the punishment for in this world. The first is injustice, any type of injustice that you've committed. The second is breaking relations, breaking family relations. And the third is false oath. So we see that the Imam, he says, in this world, you will see the consequence, you will see the punishment of breaking family relations. No, not in the next world. No, you will see the punishment, you will see its effects in this world itself. And what is one of the punishments of severing relations with family members? The narrations state that one of the punishment is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He shortens the lifespan of the person who breaks family ties. The person who breaks family ties, the Imams, they say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shortens their lifespan. And in relation to this, one day a companion by the name of Maysir, he came and sat with Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The Imam, he greets his companion, and while he's having a conversation with his companion, Imam says to him, Ya Maysir, your death had come many times, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala postponed it due to your kindness and good behavior to your relatives. Because of your kindness and your good behavior to your relatives, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increased your lifespan. Silatul Rahim, what does it do? It increases lifespan. And similar to this, there's a story of one of Imam Musa Kazim alayhi salam's companions named Yaqub al-Maghribi. He was in the presence of the Imam. The Imam looks at him and he says, O Yaqub, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who is without any partner, and fear the divine punishment. This is all he says. The Imam says this to him. When the Imam said this to him, the companion, he became worried. And he says, Yabna Rasulullah, Mawla, have I done anything wrong? And the Imam, he replied, you and your brother had an argument over the ownership of a house. So much so that you abused each other and broke up the ties of relation. You cut family relations with each other. And the Imam, he says, Imam Musa Kazim, he says that such a thing is not from my religion, neither is it from the religion of my ancestors. Due to this sin, death will separate both of you. Due to this sin of cutting off ties, death will separate both of you. Your brother will die in this journey. His brother had gone on a journey. He said that your brother will die in this journey and you shall regret your actions. You'll regret that you had this type of argument with your brother. You'll regret that you cut off family ties. The man, Yaqub al-Maghrib, he asked the Imam, he says, Mawla, may my life be sacrificed for you. When will I die? The Imam, he replies to him, he says, Yaqub, your death has also arrived. But you did an act of kindness to your aunt, and because of that, your lifespan increased by months. Because you did an act of kindness to your relatives, because you kept silatul rahim between other relatives, because of that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has increased your lifespan. And as the Imam had predicted, Yaqub's brother, he died in that journey before he could reach his home, and he was buried on the way. So brothers and sisters, how many families are there that don't talk to each other, let alone meet each other, over arguments that can be easily cleared up? How many brothers don't talk to brothers because of an argument that occurred? How many sisters don't talk to sisters because of an argument that occurred? A major problem in the Indo-Pak community, in the Pakistani community, is how many families don't talk to relatives because one's daughter didn't marry the other's son. or one son didn't want to marry the other's daughter. Not just the Indian Pakistan, the Arab communities also. Islam says that this cutting off relations is haram, yet it's rampant in our societies. Even if the other side wants to break ties, the Masumeen alayhi salam say you should always keep ties with them. You shouldn't break them just because your relatives break them. A lot of people, what did they say? If he doesn't want to talk to you, you know what? Okay, I won't talk to him either. I won't talk to him either. Islam says no. You do your best to keep Silat Rahim. Call them. If they don't pick up, then they don't pick up. You did what you needed to do. Say salam to them. If they don't answer, then they don't answer. You did what you did what you needed to do. Keep these bonds. That's what Islam says. Keep these ties. The Aimah, what have they said? They said that you should continuously act good towards them. You should continuously do acts of kindness towards them, even if they break ties with you. Why? Because there's a chance that they will see your kindness and then fulfill their rights on you. They'll see that, you know what, you're being kind to them. The Imam alayhi, they say that, look, they'll see that you're being kind to them, even though you guys got in an argument, even though they cut off ties. They'll see that you're being kind to them. And what will they do in return? They'll come back. They'll connect with you again. And this way, both of you will be showered with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. The Imams, they said, both of you will be showered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. But if you break ties with them, then neither will be eligible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. Another companion of Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam by the name of Dawood, he had come to the Imam and sat with him, and all of a sudden the Imam looked at him and he says, Dawood, on Thursday the report of your deeds was presented to me, and I saw among your deeds the Silat al-Rahim which you had done towards your cousin, and I was very pleased by it. I was very pleased by it. From this narration and stuff, there are some people that have a problem with understanding the fact that, look, these deeds that we do, they're presented to the Imams every Thursday. Their narrations that state that the deeds that we do, they're presented to the Imams every Thursday, and they look at our deeds, and based on those deeds, they're happy or they're sad. They're either smiling or they're crying based on the deeds. These deeds are presented to them. And people, they have a hard time understanding how can all of these mu'mineen's deeds be presented to the Imam Thursday night. In 12 hours they see all of the deeds. Oh yes. Why is it so hard to understand? They're the representatives of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them that ability, what is wrong with that? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given these angels the ability to write everything that we say and do, everything, why can't He give them, His representatives, the ability to see the deeds that we do? So I don't understand. To me, the Imams, they're the representatives of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They know what our actions are. Not only that, but they're the witnesses on the Day of Judgment. They'll be the witnesses for our actions also. They will be the witnesses. Just like these two angels are witnesses, they will also be witnesses. But when Dawood, he sits in front of the Imam tells him that on Thursday, when your deeds were brought to me, I was happy that you had done Silat al-Rahim with your relatives, and I was pleased to see it. However, the Imam, he says, however, I know that because of your cousin's Qatl Rahim, he will pass away soon. He will pass away soon. And this man, he says, look, my cousin used to have enmity towards me and had broken ties with me. But a time fell on him when he became destitute. He was in need of money. And he became very needy. When I found out, I went to Mecca and gave him some money so that he could live off of it for some time. Even though he had cut off all ties with me, when I found out that this is my cousin, he needs my help, I have money and he needs my help, even though he cut off those ties, this man, he says that I went to Mecca and I gave him money so he could live off of it for some time. It was this action of mine that Imam alayhi salam told me about. It was this action. Even the Masumeen never broke ties with relatives who hated them. No, they did their best to help them. For example, a relative of Imam Jafar Sadiq had such malice and hate for the Imam that he once tried to attack him with a sword. Yet Imam, he didn't let that get in the way of giving this relative his right. And what do? Sever relations after simple arguments. After simple arguments. And the ones that will be punished twofold are the ones that sever relations with their parents. One for being disobedient, and two for severing relations. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does He say in the Quran? And we went over this about parents. He says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Your Lord has decreed that you worship none but Him, and that you be kind to your parents. Whether one or both of them attain old age in your life, do not say to them any words. Do not even say to them oof. Do not say to them any words of contempt, nor repel them, but address them in terms of honor. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanded to be kind to parents, yet there are people who have broken off relations to them for some reason or another. So these people, what will happen to them? Because they've committed two sins, they'll be punished for both of them. One, for being disobedient to parents. Two, for cutting off relations with parents. And it happens the other way around also, where the parents, they don't want anything to have to do with the child because they didn't marry who they chose for them, or they didn't become what they wanted them to become. You didn't become a doctor or an engineer, the only two professions that matter. So parents don't talk to you. Especially in the Asian culture, the parents push the child to be a doctor. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he has given such good advice to parents about kids that every parent or every person that wants to be a parent should remember. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he has said that you were born for a different time period and your kids are born for a different time period. You were born for a different time period. Or you were born in a different time period, your kids were born for a different time period. Meaning what? If you keep that in mind, you see that the time continuously changes. When time continuously changes, the time period that you were born for, the time period that you were growing up in, don't keep that time period in your mind and force your children to do everything that you did. Don't force them to do everything that you did. It's not necessary that everyone becomes a doctor. What happens in the olden days? I shouldn't say in the olden days. 15, 20, 30 years, or the last generation. The last generation, their parents, they always push their kids to be what? In the Indian Pakistani community, they push their kids to be doctors. That's it. Nothing else mattered. Nothing else mattered. It's not necessary that everyone becomes a doctor or engineer. In this age of technology, these aren't the only two professions worth working towards. These aren't the only two professions that matter. Now is the time when Islam, and that too, particularly Shia Islam, needs people in every field. And look at why Christianity, or look at why Judaism, or look at why Jews are so successful. You'll have a Christian family, or you'll have a Jewish family. where one's a doctor, another is a professor, another works in media, another in computer programming, computer engineering, another a lawyer. In a family, you'll have all of the people in all of these different professions. But what do you say in our community? Everyone in a family is a doctor. Not that there's anything wrong with being a doctor. I'm not saying there's something wrong with being a doctor. No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 32, and whoever saves a life is as though they have saved the life of all of mankind. And this is what doctors do. They save lives. The ones that save lives, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in the Quran that it's as if they saved the life of mankind. No, there's nothing wrong with being a doctor. But when you look at the bigger picture of working for the sake of Islam, especially working for the sake of the Ahlul Bayt, is that the only profession that is required? Do we also not need people in media who can propagate the teachings of true Islam? Do we also not need professors who can teach about the Jafri school of thought? At the college and university level, do we also not need software engineers who can build apps or softwares to propagate our deen? Do we also not need lawyers who can fight against the injustice that happens to mu'mineen? No, all of these professions are also equally valid. All of these professions also help the religion. The reality is that this is one of the reasons why family ties are broken. One of the reasons why family ties are broken. Another big one within the community, the Indian Pakistani community, is marriage. Marriage. You didn't marry, your son didn't marry my daughter, that's it. Your daughter didn't marry my son, that's it. These are two of the main reasons why family relations are completely cut off. And we've already seen the consequences of breaking them. When the Imam, he says that you will see the consequences of breaking family relations. You'll see the consequence in this world, not in the next world. You'll see it in this world itself. So if those are the consequences of breaking family relations, let's look at the benefits of keeping family relations. And Imam Muhammad Baqir, he was asked about it, and he replied that Silatul Rahim, it purifies the good deeds that you do. It purifies good deeds. Meaning that if there are any shortcomings in good deeds, those shortcomings will be compensated for by this act of Silatul Rahim, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He will accept those deeds that you did. If there is some shortcoming in some deed. And the Imam, he goes on to say that it increases wealth. Silatul Rahim, it increases wealth. It wards off difficulties and calamities, and the accounting of your actions on the day of judgment is made easy, and it prolongs life. Silatul Rahim does all of this. And the Holy Prophet, he himself, he had said that when a person goes towards his relative so that he can fulfill his rights with his life and his wealth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestows upon him the reward of a shaheed at every step that he takes. At every step. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He writes down 40,000 hasana, and He erases 40,000 of his sins, and He elevates him by 40,000 degrees, by 40,000 grades. The person achieves the position of the one who has worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for 100 years. For 100 years. And this is the reward for only the steps taken to do Silatul Rahim. Can you imagine the reward for being the reason those ties, those relations are connected again? The one who takes the steps. And these are the rewards for just taking the steps. So can you imagine what the reward would be for you being the cause? Is it possible? It's possible that people think Silatul Rahim is just helping relatives out in times of need. Meaning that, many people might think that Silat Rahim, it just means that, oh, I'll help them out when they're in need, meaning just give them money. The ulama, they deduce from the traditions that there are grades of Silat Rahim. There are degrees of Silat Rahim. They say that the highest and most revered degree or stage is to consider the relatives as our own selves. The highest stage is that we consider the relatives as our own selves. That is, we should wish for our relatives whatever we wish for ourselves. Whatever we wish for ourselves. And the stage beneath that is that we help them overcome the difficulties and hardships that they may be facing. And this is what a lot of people do. This is what a lot of people do. That, you know what, oh, he's a relative, they're a relative. I'll help them in time of need. In time of need. No, there's a stage of Silat Rahim that is above that, which is that no, you don't wait. You don't just help them in time of need. No, you help them in all times, even when they don't need it, even when they need it. You're there for them, not just when they need you. No. And they go on to say that if the hardship that your relatives are in is monetary, we either provide for them or help in securing them some sort of employment. Silat Rahim doesn't necessarily mean that you just give them money. No. If they need money, Silat Rahim doesn't just necessarily mean that you just give them money. Silat Rahim also means that, hey, you know what, this is my relative, he needs a job. You find him a job. If you can give him a job, you give them a job. That's Silat Rahim. And what is the saying? If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach a man how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime. And this is the same case here. If you give them money, you'll feed them for a week, 2 weeks, a month. No, but if you give them a job, you'll feed them maybe for a lifetime until that job is there. The ulama, they say that the lowest form of Silat Rahim is to pray for the relatives in their presence. That's the lowest form. That you pray for your relatives. And this, some of this sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. And brothers and sisters, inshallah, this will be all for the lecture for tonight, because Eid is supposed to be tomorrow, and I do want to go see the moon too. Inshallah, it should be visible. But inshallah, very likely that Eid will be tomorrow, and inshallah 9 a.m. My father will do Eid prayers, and there will be a sermon also. So please, if you want to do the Eid namaz will be 9 a.m. But please, there is no niyat for jama'at. There is no jama'at to begin with. Right now, in the absence of Imam Zaman, this prayer is mustahab to begin with, and there is no mustahab prayer that requires or that you can do niyat for jama'at. So inshallah, tomorrow there will be Eid namaz, Eid prayer tomorrow, 9 a.m. sharp. If you want to follow along while my father recites, please, by all means, 9 o'clock, you can follow along. And after the prayer, there will be the Eid sermon. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Inshallah, brothers and sisters, I hope you all got what you wanted out of this Ramadan, and inshallah all of your du'as, all of the amal that you did in this holy month of Ramadan, it's accepted. Many people, they might be excited that the month of Ramadan is gone. Now they don't have to fast anymore. But you have to remember what you're missing out on is that now that the month of Ramadan is gone, now when we start breathing, there's no sawab in that. Just breathing in the month of Ramadan, just for breathing you would get sawab. You have to remember that. Now when the month of Ramadan is going, you don't get sawab for that. Now when the month of Ramadan is gone, if you recite the Quran, you don't get as much sawab as if you were to recite it in the month of Ramadan. Basically, the rewards, they have come back down to what they were before the month of Ramadan came. So if you're excited because you don't have to fast anymore, you shouldn't be, because this was the month of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We were guests of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now we're not His guests anymore. We're not His guests anymore. All the barakat that came with the month of Ramadan, they're leaving with the month of Ramadan. So you should keep that in mind. And our Qadim ulama, it stated that when the month of Ramadan was leaving, the last days of the month of Ramadan, they would stay up at night crying because the month of Ramadan was leaving. They weren't happy that it was leaving. So please, this was the last day for you to do any amal until the moon is seen. Any zikr that you recite, you remember that you will still get sawab for reciting it in the month of Ramadan before the moon is sighted. And because after the moon is sighted, that's it, the month of Ramadan ends. So please, once again, recite a Surah Fatiha for all of those mu'mineen that help out at Bab-ul-ilm, especially my brother Yasir Abbas. Please recite Surah Fatiha for their marhumeen. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Bismillah. At the end, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep the Imam of our time safe, make his reappearance as soon as possible. Let us, our families, and anyone that wants to sacrifice their life for him and his cause be able to sacrifice their life for him and his cause. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the last day, or this is the last day of Ramadan. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to please forgive the sins that we might have committed, not just in this month of Ramadan, but forgive the sins that we committed in the past too. Forgive our sins, forgive the sins of our family members, forgive the sins of our relatives, and forgive the sins of all the mu'mineen, mu'minat, and especially to forgive the sins of all of those marhumeen, mu'mineen, mu'minat that do not have anyone to ask for forgiveness on their behalf. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase the barakat that He has given us, and I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for making us His guests in this holy month of Ramadan, and I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to shower more blessings on the mu'mineen, mu'minat of the world. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, and inshallah, brothers and sisters, I will see you all again. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala